Welcome everybody. I'm glad to be here with you this evening. And tonight I would like to show you how to make some mixed media gift tags for your Christmas packaging. If you would like the patterns for these, I would love to gift them to you. They will be on my Facebook page, Joyful Heart Studio. So the line drawings for all the little bits and bobs. And then during my live, I'm going to have a kit that you can purchase for all the ephemera and all that stuff. So hi, Heidi, Sue, Karen, Ruth. So glad to see you. And I mean, I'm really glad to see you because the comments were not there and I didn't know if I was here or not. Okay, so let me get this out of the way. Okay, because a half an hour goes really quickly. So this is what I have put together. These are, I'm going to flip them over. My back sides are not painted yet, so you're going to see some of my messiness, but these are made on cardstock as a foundation. Okay, just like this. And then each one, I've tried to do different mixed media techniques on them to give them a variety of looks. And that's what I'd like to show you tonight. And hopefully you can grab the patterns and then you can do this on your own, or maybe it will inspire you to do something of your own. So let me just pick one to start with. This little snowman is on this tag. Okay. So this is just a piece of cardstock that was started with, and then it was trimmed down into the tag shape. And I'm going to show you how to put the sheet music on, and then with the wonder of television, just like a cooking show, I've always wanted to do that. I have one already prepped and we can just continue making it. But you know, in the cooking show, when they have something delightful that they're making, and then voila, they pull it out and that step's already done. So what we're going to do is we have our tag, we have some sheet music, just have a piece of sheet music here. And so I'm going to just roughly trim this just a little bit bigger than my shape. Hi, Karen, great to see you. Hi, Patty. Okay. I'm going to be using matte medium for everything that needs to be adhered on to my papers. And so I'm just going to put a little matte medium in my little cup here. I have to let my cup smile at everybody because I do this in every class. My little 11-year-old daughter gave me this to keep my matte medium in while I'm working. And so I always like to let it smile at everyone. Okay, so I'm just going to use a large scruffy brush. And let me just grab my paper towel here. And let me move this out of the way so I have a messy surface I can get messy with. I'm going to apply matte medium to the tag. And I'm going to apply it to the back of the paper. And the matte medium is just going to adhere the two papers together. So I kind of just stick it down in the middle and then only the middle at first while I kind of adjust and make sure everything is straight. And then I'm going to just firmly press this down. My paper was sealed ahead of time with a layer of clear gesso. Okay, I always seal all of my vintage paper with clear gesso or white gesso before I begin, and that protects the paper because I use vintage papers for all of my projects and they're sometimes very brittle. So the clear gesso protects it and lets me see the beautiful print or pattern through. Okay, so I would just set this aside and let it dry, and then I would trim it up. Patty, yes, the clear gesso is better than Mod Podge for my projects because everything that we do on the foundation, we're going to then keep building on. So we're going to paint on top of it. We're going to add layers of paper. And while Mod Podge is a wonderful product, it's really meant to be a top coat. and not kind of to have things layered on top of it. So the clear gesso is great. Deco Art's product, they have a decoupage. I don't know how they actually pronounce it. It looks like deco hyphen Page. Their product I've worked with and I really like it. I'm not positive if it's meant to be put in the middle as a layer, but it seems to hold up just fine. But the Liquitex matte medium is my favorite. Okay, so here's one that's already dried, and you can take a look at this little guy again. So the music is in the background. You can see the blues around the edge. That's going to be some distressed medium. So the next thing that we're going to do is the little snowman. So I have just a little pattern, just like we're used to with decorative painting. And then this is a piece of a dictionary page. Actually, this is a magazine page. And this has white gesso that's been applied. And I'm just going to transfer this just like we're used to using a piece of transfer paper. And these tags are meant to be quick and easy. And I'm going to show you some little cheats and shortcuts that can make them easy. So if I were going to do enough tags for many gifts, I would base coat with the white gesso a whole page. Hi Gail, hi Sue. And then I would just transfer all my little snowmen on. And if I were doing a lot of them, I might only transfer the bodies, and then I might actually paint a whole section of red and cut them out separately. But for tonight, we're going to keep this together. So because this had the white gesso, his body is already base coated. Ta-da! So the hat is going to be next, and I'm going to use Santa Red. And I'm just going to put a little out of my palette. And because everything gets cut out, the great thing is there's no base coating in the traditional way that we think of. So I'm just going to load my brush in the Santa Red. And I typically, instead of having water in my brush, I'll just have a little bit of matte medium out. And then I'll have matte medium in my brush instead of water, because the less water we can use on the old papers, the better. And the matte medium is more on the surface and it doesn't absorb like the water does. So instead of a lot of finicky base coating, I'm just gonna be careful around his body, and that's it. And I'm gonna smooth my paint out, and see I'm all messy here and out of the lines, and it's fine because we're gonna cut it out. So it makes the process go very, very quickly. So that's that. And then let me just get a little Napa red. I'll do just a little bit of shading. For the sake of time, I have my little dryer here, but it does dry very quickly. But let me just give them a little help. Okay, so I'm going to side load again, just like traditional decorative painting techniques. I'm going to have matte medium in my brush again instead of water. And I'm going to pick up a little Napa red on the corner. I'm going to blend, blend, blend. If you come to paint class with me, you can sing the song. Blend many times. When you do any type of painting, but especially when you're painting on papers, we use the paper because we love the pattern and we want to see the print, the handwriting, the text showing through. So we don't want to cover it completely with opaque colors. So the matte medium keeps the paint transparent, but we still have the darker shade that we want here for shading. So I'm floating just up the side just to give a little bit of shadow there. Okay, and then this little guy we can cut out already. So I'm just using my little detail scissors. These are Cutter Bee scissors. They're EK Success. You can get them, I know, on Amazon. I'm not sure what other stores carry them. They have traditional looking silver blades, and then they have pairs like this with the dark blades. And these are like a non-stick blade, so they're really awesome. I love them so much. And that little pointy tip is great for when you need to do detail cutting in little small spaces. Okay, so here we have our little guy all base coated. Now, before I put him on the paper, the bottom part of the paper, we're going to put a little bit of snow background on. So just going to put a little bit of white. You could use texture medium here. I'm not going to tonight because it takes a little longer to dry, but that works really fantastically. And let me just grab, I'm going to show you another little trick. Instead of base coating with a paintbrush, I'm just going to grab a little scrap of the cardstock. Whew, my brain. I'm just going to scrape this right across the bottom. So it's going to give me a little extra texture. It's just tinting the paper, and I'm kind of just making a little snowy area on the bottom for my snowman to sit in, okay? And again, no water in my paint. By just scraping it on, I'm all paint, and it's not going to let my paper buckle. And I will tell you that the tags do, they sometimes will curl as you're working on them. And I didn't want to forget to mention this, so I'm going to mention it now. When I'm completely finished, except for any embellishments like buttons and things, I actually put them between a little thin towel and with an iron and heat them up and then quickly put them underneath a heavy book, and they flatten right out once you let the heat, you heat the paper up and then you cool the paper down. Okay, so this little guy is ready to go on. So I'm going to go back to my matte medium. And again, I'm going to do the back of my paper. Hi, Judy. And then I'm going to do my tag. And I'm just going to get him positioned where I want him. And then I'm going to put a little layer of matte medium on top and then just gently press with your fingers. You want to slide to make sure you don't have any extra matte medium stuck underneath the paper, because if you do, that's where you'll get little puckering or little lifting, bubbling looks. So it's really important to, once you have it down, really give a firm press. And my paint wasn't quite dry there, so I'm kind of tinting my background. But okay, so this is where we're at with this guy. And we want to let him dry. So guess what? I'm going to just set him aside for a second. And we're going to look at this one. It starts again with just a piece of cardstock. Okay. But this one has got the little stocking, a little button embellishment. So the first thing we're going to do with this one, again, my cardstock has clear gesso on it, just so it doesn't absorb so much water. But this time I'm going to use music again, and I'm going to just tear my music. I like really uneven edges. I love a rustic look. So when you see my projects, most of them are distressed. I use Tim Holtz antiquing, distress oxide and distress ink on almost everything I make. I love getting that extra tint of color. So I tear because I like that rustic edge. And I can give you another little hint about the tearing. If you tear with an upward peel like this, you will expose kind of the core of the paper. So when you distress, that thin paper will catch the distressing medium. And if your paper has a different color core than the surface, it gives a really cool look too, because you'll expose that white. If you tear downward, you don't get that. You get just the paper itself, and it doesn't give you that raggedy edge. But I love the raggedy edge. So okay, so I'm just going to tear this a little bit larger because I'll snip it with my scissors. So again, I'm going to just do the same thing, matte medium. My brush back out here. And I'm going to put it on the back of the paper again. And you want a good amount of matte medium when you adhere things down. Okay. So I'm just going to kind of center this. And I'm going to squeeze out the extra. You get the idea. So I'm doing this process right here with each of the different tags. Each time I add a piece of paper, this is how I'm adhering things down with the matte medium. So then just smooth everything out again. Okay, so I'm going to come back to this little guy and I'll show you because I'm not going to get to all these obviously in a half hour. This one, if you're looking for a quick tag, this one is really simple because the background is just base coated with blue and then it's stippled, and then little pine accent takes about 30 seconds to pull the little pine. And then I'll show you how the Merry Christmas, I have little tissue transfers for all the lettering. So you can either letter them in your own handwriting, or if you want to be fast, you can use the tissue transfers and then just a little punch star for an accent on this one. So really, really quick, but a nice way to give your gifts a handmade touch. Okay, so let me just give a little float around my snowman just to set him apart from the background a little more. So again, I have matte medium in my brush, and I'm just going to kind of float this very loosely just to give him a little kind of a little shading there behind where he sits. Did you see the brush stroke with a matte medium? Did I see it? I'm not sure, Patty, what you're asking here. I have matte medium. Oh, do I do the brush strokes for the pine? I did have water in my brush. When I use my liner brush, I still carry water because it's not got quite enough flow to do the thin line work. But for comma strokes and things, you can just have matte medium in your brush and it works fine. Okay, on this one, I came, let's see here. I don't want to get to the background yet. I want to get his face enough so that I can get the lettering on for you. When you use it as a glue, when it dries, do you see the brush strokes? If you don't, did you see me brush over it like this when I was done? That was to smooth it out, because if you just go every which way, you will see those brush strokes when you're done. And with your fingers, when you're pressing it out, you can get little finger marks. So every time I'm done adhering something down, then I do brush over to smooth it all out. That's a really good question, because with mixed media art, we love texture, and so sometimes with matte medium you can take a big brush, and then with your matte medium on, you can sort of, swish swash around and put brush strokes in purposely, like to look like old art. But in the case of what we're doing, I did not do that, and I do smooth everything over. Okay, I'm just going to quickly give him a little nose, just the tip of my round brush. And then 2 little eyes. I'm going to use black for that. And just going to, again, set just the tip of my brush down, doop, for 2 little eyes. And let me dry that real quick. Hi, Melissa. Ooh, don't get your heat too close when you're rushing through. Did you see my paper kind of come up here? Okay, so I'm just going to ignore that, but don't you guys do that. Let your stuff dry, and if you use your dryer, don't get close. Okay, so with this much done, I'm going to use Broken China. Distress, this is the Distress Oxides. So the oxides dry with kind of a chalky finish. They're a beautiful look. And I'm just going to use a dauber for this. And I'm going to swirl around and go from my messy paper right up onto the tag. And I want to get blue kind of behind him for some sky. So I'm just swirling this in. Now the distress inks are the colors are so fabulous. I love them, love them, love them. However, they are water-based product. So you have to be careful if you use a distress ink while you're working on a project and you're going to be painting on top of it or applying matte medium on top of it, it will reactivate the ink. So I'll show you how to seal that in. I want to get one more blue here. That was broken china. This one is denim. And I'm just going to go again at my edges and my corners. So I have two blues here. Just softly get that on there. And my dauber, I like to take my paper towel, or I have a cloth that I use here, and I like to just swirl the tips of the brushes on there to clean the tips off, and then you don't have to wash these. There's like a million little hairs in these brushes. Aren't they awesome? But you'll get a residue of the ink if you let it dry on there. So I just make a habit of swiping it off every time. Okay, so with this much done, what we want to do is, normally I would dry this, I think I will still. I'm going to just dry my ink. So dry does not mean that it is permanently set, okay? So to set it, we're going to pick up matte medium on a sponge, and my sponge is dry. I can't say it enough. We don't want to introduce water unless we really have to. So I'm just tapping my sponge off to the side, and then I'm going to stay up and down, and I'm going to tap over the distress ink. And I'm just going to go ahead and go over my whole tag. So I'm sort of sealing this layer in. And you can see the ink starts to, I can get it where the sheen isn't on there. The ink will activate a little underneath the distress ink, and it gets almost watercolor looking. So I'm just going to keep tapping to let it soften. Okay. And then guess what? I'm going to dry it again. If you don't have the inks, could you dry? Yes, you could dry brush them on. You could use also glazing medium and put glazing medium into whatever color you want for the background, and then take your tip of your finger or paper towel, and you can swirl it on in the same way. That works really well. Hi, Joyce. Okay, so with the matte medium on, now my ink is sealed in here. And if I would have taken my brush and brushed matte medium on, it would have just swiped the distress ink all the way down, and we don't want that. So here's this. Now I'm going to use a little stencil. I have all my stuff here all organized, and when I reached for something, I knocked a bunch of stuff off my table. Oh. Let me just take I'll take a heart from another stencil. I'm just going to put a heart on his belly. I already have my red, so I'm just picking up the reds in my brush. I'm going to stipple it, and let me just stencil a quick little heart on his tummy. Okay. Oh, look, my stencil was right next to me. So now I'm going to pick up white now that I have the right stencil. And I'm going to stencil snowflakes on. And I like to kind of overlap. So I'm going to let some of the snowflake fall right onto his hat, because we're all about the layers. Layers, layers, layers. And you can be neater with your stenciling. Okay, I'm really hurrying here because the clock is ticking, but I wanted to show you these steps. So there's I'll put a few on here because I want to get to showing you how to put the lettering on. So if you've done my kits before, you know that they come with these sheets of image transfers. These are tissue paper lettering. So I'm just going to separate off. I'm going to put the word Noel down on the bottom. I'm just going to tear off the piece that I want. And let me just grab a round brush here. I'm going to use just water to paint a line around the word. I think that shows up okay. And then you can just tear the tissue close to the lettering. Okay. I'm going everything super fast here. So now I want to put this down on the bottom in this area. So I'm going to put a matte medium on. Every other time we have used the matte medium to adhere, we have put matte medium on the back, but tissue paper is too fragile for that. So we just put a lot of medium on the surface and then lay the tissue in it. And the tissue is going to soak up all that matte medium, and the tissue is going to disappear, and all you're going to see is the lettering. Ta-da! So again, I'm just going to gently smooth it out with my fingers to make sure I don't have any air trapped under there, no matte medium to dry and make it pucker, and then just smooth it all out, and there is the lettering, just easy peasy. Okay, so my time has flown, but let me just lay these all out here again so you can see. And let me give you my page again. On Facebook, Joyful Heart Studio, or join my group, Joyful Heart Studio Creative Art Workshop. Thank you for joining. Joyce, I have kits for the supplies for this one. I'll show it to you in my live. Okay? And if you have any other questions, you are more than welcome to message me on Facebook or through my page. Use the message system there, okay? Thank you all for joining me. I appreciate it. I'm going to sign off because I've got to come back in a different video. So I appreciate you ladies so much, and I'll see you again in just a few moments.